Hello, and welcome back to Let's Talk More on Monday. I'm your podcast host, Chloe, and I am joined today by two wonderful women in the theater and arts sector. We're going to have a conversation about how including marginalized and vulnerable people in the arts is bettering their quality of life and why that is. But thank you so much for joining us on Let's Talk More on Monday. If you like this interview, make sure to head over to our Patreon and subscribe. Save a seat with us. We will dig deeper with these folks. And if you do that, you are supporting our internship program, which helps us to support young women getting started in the industry, building their portfolios, and becoming more comfortable with how to share resources with others, which is ultimately our mission. So thank you both for joining me today on this episode. I'm so excited. This is definitely a topic that is close to my heart. So very glad to get to talk to you guys about this today. So I would love for you both to introduce yourselves to our listeners. We'll start with you, Angeline. Let us know who you are and what you do.
Certainly. Thanks for having me. I'm Angeline Larimer, and I am the executive director of Propel New Works, which is a very new nonprofit, national nonprofit. And our aim is to help people tell their stories. We offer a lot of support in that. Um, but our main group at the moment, the one who really got things going, is our Theater for Veterans group. They were our flagship. We started 3 years ago as an intro class, and it's just grown from there. So that's who I am. I teach for Indiana University, Indianapolis, and for Playpen. I've got a couple hats. I work with the Marion County Public Health Department as a bioethicist.
Yeah, I mean, reading your bio, you certainly do wear a lot of hats, and it's very
Yeah.
impressive. So, very happy to have you with us today. And you mentioned that it started with Theater for Veterans. Is that at all connected to your work with the university, or is that a separate organization?
Absolutely. It came about. I mean, I've always had a connection with veterans, personal reasons, family members, fascination with as a young child. Almost everyone of the World War II generation in my family served. But it's really because the studying that I did with medical humanities and bioethics and learning how you can incorporate theater into education and how engaging it is. But they're veterans for much longer story, getting me to veterans. I was just aware that I just really wanted to do a class where veterans could come into a university space, ideally, and we still haven't done this yet, but could come into an undergraduate space and share their stories so that both could learn from each other.
Yeah.
And especially in the healthcare sphere, mainly in that, so that future healthcare providers knew that population better.
Mm.
So I started with the veterans first, though I needed to learn a lot more about what they needed, and I know through teaching playwriting that really great conversations spring out of original work. And I wasn't sure where it was going to go, but I was really lucky to collaborate with John Sullivan, who has since passed away this last year, a licensed clinical social worker, an incredible human being. And we were just went with it and just got very lucky with the folks who have been signing up. But that's how we started with veterans and theater for veterans.
Yeah, amazing. Well, how about you, Allison? We'll turn over the mic to you. Who are you and what do you do?
I am Allison Ballard, and I do several things, but the reason I'm here is because I direct the Jesters program. It's a program at the University of St. Francis here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and it is an intergenerational, interdisciplinary program for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So that's a mouthful. It's a performing arts program, and I work with a team of contracted teaching artists that represent different disciplines. And we gather every Saturday morning from September to March. And we have 100 participants ranging in age from 8 to senior citizens. And then, of course, they bring sometimes staff people or caregivers. And then I have my team. And then we have volunteers. And then we have observers. So we have about 150 moving bodies through that space. And we work from 10 to 2. And so we keep 100 people with intellectual disabilities engaged for 4 hours. And
Somehow.
we get a lot of questions of, how do you do that? And that's a complicated answer, but I think it works. And then we co-create, our teaching artists and the participants work together to co-create an original performance that we present every March. And we do 2 showings, and each showing has an audience of about 450 people. So it's not a little recital, it's a very big deal. And it's very exciting to see how invested the participants are and how excited they are, and how much feedback and contributions they make to that process. So I really love that about the program. I also work as a behavior consultant, working with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I write grant proposals as an independent contractor. And there's something else I do. I'm the operations director at the Fort Wayne Dance Collective. And that sums it up. Oh, I have a Master of Arts in Dance Movement Psychotherapy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like you both, you have a lot of crossover in surprising ways.
Well, when you do this work, you end up doing work that's related to the work, and it all kind of starts to follow sort of a customized but common pattern.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Interdisciplinary is a great word
Yeah.
for it. There's just a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
But I like that you both touched on the fact that, these people are contributing to the works that end up getting produced, and that it just comes from having conversations with them, like what is the story that they're trying to tell, and eventually turning that into something a lot more than just a conversation.
Yeah. I really love the approach we take with our program. I call it collage-based theater, because there's no single person in our program that sits down and says, okay, I'm going to create this show. You take this idea from this person, and this idea from this person, and this idea from this person. And sometimes those ideas are not at all related. It's not like, the activity where you do the evolving storyline and one part of the story links to the other. Sometimes these ideas are completely unrelated to each other. And I love taking them and finding ways to bring them together, much like creating a collage. And I find it really exciting and fun, and it enables us to represent a lot of different voices.
Right. Yeah, and they all feel like they had a part in it.
Yes, for sure.
So I would love to know from both of you how you came to this. Angeline, you touched a little bit on your family history, but what got you both into the arts and working with those vulnerable communities? And Angeline, I'll be honest, I had to Google bioethics. I did not know what that was.
Yeah, that's fair. That's really fair. I wish I'd known about it when I was younger as an undergraduate studying writing, because it filled in a gap for me. I studied English, creative writing, and then just wandered into a playwriting class, took every script writing class I could take, and then did the master's in playwriting. I love the work. There's always something about it, but I would get this question, like, why do you write? And you two options, to entertain or to teach, and neither one of those really fit what I was doing. I didn't understand it yet. Why do I have this need to do this? Why do I keep doing this? People read it, they comment. There's so much that I make vulnerable about myself in doing this, but I really get something from it. And then it was years later with, first you take this philosophy class to study bioethics, and kind of breaks down. You ask yourself, why do I do the things that I do? Mm-hmm. And the answer, I have always written as a coping mechanism, a way of understanding my world. And I'm not really an extroverted person, depending on the situation. I'm much more, I want to process things for a while, sit with it. And then when I understood through learning more about medical humanities and bioethics, that I've been doing this all along, I just didn't really understand that that's what I need to add that. That writing is not just about entertainment. Really, it wasn't invented to be, or performance theater wasn't supposed to be about Broadway. It's first the individual is benefiting from it, then you share it with your workshop, and your peers help you get through and then you share with the public, and you have this public conversation. So that's how I came about it, the long way. And if anybody out there is wondering, I'm a writer. What do I do with this? I would suggest definitely learn the fundamentals and foundations of strong writing, but there's this whole other area of sociology, social work, therapy, that you learn more and more of why what you're doing is really valuable for yourself and for those who you share it with. And that's how I got to where I was at. And then wanting to share it with other specific groups, veterans, they overlap in so many areas right now that are that we're worried about in society. I would say that the folks who do the playwriting class regularly are the people in their community who are taking care of others. So they're like the nurturers and caregiver as veterans who are trying to help others who are going through tough times. So initially I thought, well, maybe this would benefit them in the way it benefits me. But I also see that it holds space to maybe take a little bit of a break and be creative and, get the mental boost from that. So I get a lot of, I feel very fulfilled in helping them catch their breath for the week so that they can go out and help others the way that they do.
Yeah. How about you, Allison? What got you started?
Well, there's some parts of my story that's similar to Angeline's. I'm also a writer, and I've always been a writer. I demanded my mother teach me to read when I was 3, and I started reading independently by 4. I was reading chapter books, and so when I started school, I was reading at a more advanced level than my peers. So my teacher would just take me down to the library and let me spend reading time in the library while they were learning to read. And so
love it when your teachers don't know what to do with you.
Right, they didn't know what to do with me. So I was exposed to, I remember, I have a clear memory of the teacher walking me down the hall. I thought I was in trouble, of course, and taking me into the library and saying, "You can read any book on this wall." She had directed me to young chapter reading, beginning reading chapter books. And I just remember thinking, wow. And so I spent a lot of time reading through stories, and then I would try to share the stories with my peers, and they were reading about Dick and Jane and Spot and the Big Red Ball, and it wasn't much of a connection. So I started directing my imaginary friends, and I would spend hours, creating performance work. I realize now is what I was doing, scene development. I didn't know it at the time. And so, those skills started really early. It's just a natural part of who I was. And then I started writing these things down, and then I, wrote more, and then I just wrote all the time. And I wrote like Angeline, to process, to document, to record, to explore, to communicate. And so it just kind of grew from there. And then I was always a mover. I wasn't a technically trained dancer. I didn't even walk into a dance class until I was in my early 20s. But I was an improvisational mover, and it became very natural to me. And then I discovered taiko drumming in my early 30s. And then I realized I was a drummer, because taiko is rhythm and movement. And I realized I've been a drummer all my life. That's why I couldn't sit still in my classes. And that's why I'm acting out these stories, and because I need to move. And so then it all kind of clicked together. And I just had so I've been an interdisciplinary artist and had to discover that about myself. No one says, you are an interdisciplinary artist. It's a journey you take. And then I really wanted, my personal mission as I grew was to empower others to discover themselves as artists, because I realized there were a lot of us walking around as artists, but we don't really give ourselves permission to identify as artists, because we have this distorted idea of what it means to be an artist. And especially if you're not a visual artist painting a picture that's hung in the museum, it's hard to claim yourself as an artist. So when this job opportunity at the university working with people with intellectual disabilities came up, I was so interested in it, not because I had any specific affiliation with people with intellectual disabilities, but because it really spoke to my personal mission of empowering everyone to identify as artists. And our program, the people who come are self-selected from our community. I'm not walking into a school being told, work with these 30 kids in this classroom or 30 people in this classroom. And so they're coming because they're wanting to identify as artists. And I love giving them the skills and the tools and the resources and the teachers to help them further their identity as an artist. So, that's kind of what got me here today.
Yeah. And I think it's especially hard, not only if you have a certain skill set in the arts, but if you are neurodivergent or physically disabled or for whatever reason have found yourself limited in the field that you chose, like it's that much harder to feel like you belong and that you have a voice and deserve space at the table. So I think you're both doing very important work in that regard. And I love that you both touched on the fact that these people have stories to tell and narratives that may not ever come out unless they were part of your programs. So I think that's very powerful. And we will explore some more of that over on our Patreon. So make sure to go check out that episode. But we are going to wrap up this episode of Let's Talk More on Monday. So ladies, is there any way that you would want our listeners to find you on the web, or you just want to plug your programs? This is your time here at the end before we transition over to our next interview.
Sure, I'll go. If you want to check out the website, it's under construction. We're that new, but it's propelnewworks.org. I'm happy if someone just wants to reach out to me directly at Angeline Larimer at gmail.com. We will be starting another introduction to playwriting for veterans course in the next month or so, just kind of coordinating with the core writers right now and some of our other projects. We gotta get on the calendar, but yeah, we'd happy to hear from you. Yeah, that's my plug.
Awesome.
I think the best way to find out about the Jesters program, spelled Jesters, is through our Facebook page. So you just go to Facebook and Google Jesters or search Jesters. And I'm not sure what's on there. I don't maintain our Facebook page. I have a team member who does it, but I'm told that, there are regular postings, and I check in with our person who's doing that. So I hope you find it a delightful experience and learn all kinds of things about the Jesters when you go there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for joining me. Thank you if you are listening to this episode, and make sure to head on over to Patreon, where we're going to dig a little deeper into how to involve our communities more in these opportunities. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time, and let's talk more on Monday. Bye.
Thank you.